Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa, and my poetry name is New Lily. If you're new, please check out the links located in the description box and comment section. And in both locations, you'll find an identical set of links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information. I don't even know why I'm studying them. I'm sorry, y'all. Links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information about the targeted individual program, information about tactics used on targets, technology, etc. Sorry that I sound drained, y'all. I'm exhausted. As you all know from the last video and the last actually 2 videos, I'm now working 2 jobs. And although this is something I've done throughout the years, even prior to my targeting, I haven't done it in a long time, y'all. You know, it's been like a struggle trying to get work, and now here I am working 2 jobs, right? So I have to get acclimated to doing that again. But then also, too, I'm dealing with a new situation now. So I'm doing that, which is already tedious and strenuous and puts a strain on the body. And then I'm also dealing with targeting. So that puts a strain on the psyche, which also puts a strain on the body. You know how they say stress can make you sick? Yeah, it's the same concept, right? So it's like double the stress that I would have already have been dealing with from working 2 jobs. So it's a lot, y'all. I'm dealing with a lot, but I'm really strong. As you all know, I've been duking this thing out for 4 years, y'all. Didn't commit a crime, didn't do anything wrong. I sent a text message. And I've been dealing with a lot these last 4 years. Y'all don't even understand, right? So anyways, this video is really I'm really mad, y'all, because I actually started making the video when I was in the shopping center a little while ago. I spoke for 12 minutes, y'all, and I'm exhausted. Like, I can't even really explain to you. I haven't been this tired in a long time. Yesterday, I came off of a double shift. You know, I did the night shift Sunday night, and then I went straight and did the day shift yesterday, Monday. And then I went to the gym. And I worked out because I was off last night, so I knew I would get to rest. So then I went to the gym and I worked out for 2 hours. Hardcore, heavy lifting, y'all know what I do. And even that, coming home from that, wasn't as exhausted. I didn't feel as exhausted as I feel tonight. I don't know if it's just a residual buildup, you know, because the week is now going on. And so if I'm just tired from the week in general, or if today was just that draining to me, I don't know. I'm so tired, y'all. Anyways, so let me talk about what's going on though. Like I said in the last video, it's not going to be a habitual thing, me making videos about the job. It can't be, because of the type of job that it is. Like I've said, right? It's law enforcement, and what happens in the jail is confidential. So it's not even just a thing where I could lose my job, but it's a thing where I could actually go to jail if I document certain things. So I have to be careful when it comes to documentation and this new job. In fact, it just needs to not happen, period. But they're not going to gaslight me when they're barking outside. But today something happened, and something has been happening in addition to what happened today that I just want to talk about and knock down in this video, right? And then these future videos, anything else that happens, because I am targeted, right? So while I'm targeted, I am going to deal with stuff. That's just how it is. And I've already come to that conclusion and made peace with that. That's just how it is. You know, I'm going to deal with stuff while I'm targeted. And until I get out of this thing, and I will get out, most high spare my life, I'm going to be dealing with certain things, right? So that's just how it is when you're targeted. So anyways, that's not a thing that I'm going to use as an excuse to keep making videos about work, because again, I can get in trouble for it. But today in particular, I do want to talk about something that happened. Because again, as usual, you know, it's not even just that the incident that has to do with my targeting took place. Because if that were the case, and that were just the case, and I left work and everything was normal, then okay. But whenever these negative things happen, and I've talked about this in my prior videos, everything that's happening with me is being watched. And it's televised. And it's being live streamed to everyone on island. I actually thought in my convoluted mind that somehow when I got behind the jail walls, they would limit access to certain people because it's a jail, and they have, even in orientation, they talk about the fact that you can't have cell phones in there, super confidential, this and that. So I just figured while I was in there, for sure, the camera access to the people on the outside would be limited. I figured, okay, well, they're going to still watch me. I'm still targeted for now. But I didn't think that, I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, actually. I was wondering, I genuinely was wondering, is everyone going to have access still to these cameras on me, even when I'm in the jail, behind the jail walls, because it's such a, confidential type thing. Well, I got my answer today, y'all. Right? So whatever it is happened today at work. And then when I left, as usual, when negative things happen to me, the gang stalkers are celebrating, right? It's a celebratory event. As soon as I leave, they're revving by and you go acting crazy. It's just craziness. And then whenever anything's good is happening for me, I be seeing them glaring and looking angry, and it's just this weird thing when you're targeted, man. It's like it literally emulates, and I don't care if they call me narcissist or not. It's gaslighting for you to say that. It literally emulates somebody that's being hated on. What happens, the tactics that's used, and the emotions you feel from so many people about what's going on in your personal life. Like, you notice when good things are happening, they're angry, and then when bad things are happening, they're like literally celebrating. It emulates hating. It really does. And what it is really you just have a lot of people, right, that hop on and tack on, and they see the reactions that you've had to the targeting, which are usually nasty reactions, and they judge you based on those reactions, and they join the hate train. And so that's really how the thing works. It's a very comprehensive program, and it's very good at villainizing and isolating a human being. That's how it was designed. It was made decades ago. That's how it's designed. They can do it to literally anyone. And they can easily vilify a person and get a bunch of people to turn against that person. And then the heinous treatment the person receives causes these adverse reactions, and then more people tack on to the hate train. And so then it's a bunch of people bullying this one person. And the more you get bullied, the more you react, right? And if you're a strong-minded person like I am, the more you buck back and the more nasty you become. And then you become vilified even more for these nasty reactions. That's how the thing works. You could be a person that's never had problems in your entire life. And the moment you get thrown in this thing, you turn into a villain. They mark you as villain, and then you start to actually act the way they're treating you. Anyway, so it's a comprehensive program, y'all, like I said. But a lot of people are involved in my targeting. And so I'm constantly like going to war with a bunch of people. It's psychological warfare and physical too, for that matter. Anyway, so here's what's going on, y'all. So I told y'all, like I said, I wasn't going to document anything that took place when I got into the jail. But this is the one and only, I mean it for real, the one and only thing I want to document, because it was a mix of this thing that's been happening in addition to something that happened today. I'm like, I got to talk about it. Like, I'm like, especially when I laugh and the stupid shit that was going on with the ref campaign, I'm like, oh my God, no, the gaslighting. Like, I have to talk about it. So, again, I can't say too much about the job, but I can just kind of give you a little brief description about my role right now. I'm a cadet, right? And I told you guys this in the last video. So I'm basically in training to become a corrections officer, and I'm also in a probationary period still. And I'll be on this probationary period for a year, right? So I really need to be careful, right? Anyway, so while I'm a cadet, it's not like I have a set post or a set duty that they give me within the jail. That doesn't happen until you become an actual officer. So at the moment, I'm like an understudy. So I'm basically being thrown from officer to officer, as the days go on, until PT starts, police training. When that starts, then I'll be going to academy, and I'll be taking classes and doing that over there. But for now, until that starts, and from what I understand, that probably won't be starting until February, I'm going to be going to the jail, and I'm not going to have my own set post. Like, I'm noticing the officers that are actually officers, they have their set posts, right? And so they have their own little space. It's almost like the little own office space where they do what they do, right? They do their thing. Or if you get assigned as a victor, from what I understand, you move back and forth throughout the facility, transferring inmates. So it really just depends on whatever your role is. But it's somewhat of a independent role. Like, we work together as a team, obviously. But it's like you get your own little independent role. It's not like you're tacked onto one person if you're an actual officer. But as a cadet, it's kind of like an internship, and I'm like an understudy. So it's like I'm forced every day to sit up under one of the officers just to kind of learn the position. That's understandable. That's normal. And it would be normal if I weren't targeted. It really is just the targeting that makes it awkward. But I have to sit up under a person basically all day long. And it's kind of a sedentary job. In a way, it's not, right? Like, it can get busy and stuff. But oftentimes there are times where you're just sitting there monitoring. That's what you're doing. And so it's like, for me, I'm sitting up underneath, like I said, an officer as an understudy. And that's where it gets awkward, right? Because my thoughts are being projected. Can you imagine how this feels? My thoughts are being projected, so I'm aware of the fact that everyone around can hear my thoughts, including the officer I'm sitting up under, right? I'm being stared at on camera. And then there's this element of dislike and me not knowing who likes me from who doesn't like me because of the targeting, because of the villainization and the vilifying of my character and the preconceived notion of whatever, right? People have their ideas of who they think I am or how they think I am. So because of all of that, that makes it even more awkward. It's not like I'm just going in there with a fresh, clean slate like a regular person, right? And sitting up under an officer. Because that too would be annoying. I can imagine that would be annoying, having somebody sit up under you and you're like, today's my turn with the newbie, right? But it's not as big of a deal as if you're dealing with somebody that's a target that you might have feeling towards already. That's where that gets a little bit more awkward, especially for the target. It's like, I have no choice. I have to do this. I want this job. I have to do this. I have to sit up under you. So it just feels awkward, and I know my thoughts are being projected. The ticking happens sometimes because of programming, sensitization, etc. So can you imagine how awkward that is? And then it's like you're in this sedentary kind of way because it's not much to do sometimes. Again, sometimes it can get busy. But even the things that there are to do, really, the main officer does it. I'm just the understudy. I'm just studying what you do. So it's like this kind of way where I have nothing but time on my hands, can't bring my phone into the facility, which I'm not complaining about. I understand why. It's considered contraband. And whenever they were allowing officers/civilians to bring phones in, sometimes inmates would get a hold of the phone. So I understand I looked it up. It's obviously a policy that's everywhere, even in the mainland. So that's not something I'm complaining about. It just makes it a little bit more awkward because it's like, okay, I need to find something to do. I try to bring my book in to read my book. They can hear my thoughts. So they're hearing the book. Like I told you guys, I used to do this with security too, recently, since knowing that my thoughts with the neuromonitoring technology were being projected. I tried to read my book when I was doing security at night. I'm still doing security at night. But when I was in the shopping center, remember I'm at a new post now, I tried to do that, and they're revving by every time I'm reading certain parts of the book. It just gets so awkward. I read romance books. I read urban novels, so it's just like I'm reading the book. They're revving by for everything, even if it's like something that they're trying to like paint as me. Like, let's say it's a home wrecker situation, for instance, which isn't always the case. But, sometimes you might have a character that's like loose or whatever. They're revving by for that. Or if it's a scene where it's getting a little romantic, they're revving by for that. So it just gets so awkward and uncomfortable trying to read, even read a book. Something as simple as reading a book I can't even do comfortably. Hold on a second, y'all. So anyways, so it's just like this portion is going to be the painful part. I could done tell already that this portion of trying to become a corrections officer, I could tell this is going to be the unpleasant part. Here is the understudy part. Before I actually get like a solid position and I can kind of move around and work and do my own thing independently. Like, yeah, work as a team, of course, but still have my own independent role where I'm not like feeling like I'm sitting up under somebody, right? Y'all, give me a minute. Let me, I'll finish the video in a second. Y'all, back to finish the video, right? That last clip that you guys heard was actually from Tuesday, and it's now Friday night / Saturday morning. Y'all know I do the 2 jobs, so I'm doing a night shift job now, right? So that was quite a few days ago, that last clip that you guys heard, and it just took me a while to get back to making it, y'all. Exhaustion, etc., right? So I'm back and I'm finishing up now. I just want to quickly finish talking about what took place, right? Because again, not even supposed to be making a video about that job. And I now have something that took place with the night shift job that I want to document, right? The job I'm working at the moment. So I just want to hurry up and wrap up the last clip. Since then, because that last clip was from Tuesday, y'all, I've worked with other officers and I've had better experiences. I worked with this guy that was really nice, and he showed me the ropes. And then also, today they had me in the cafeteria, so there were more things to do. It was more hands-on, so it's not like I felt like I was just kind of sitting all day long with nothing to do. So that was a lot better, right? So it has improved a little bit. But that's just how it is. It's just the rough patch of going through cadet training. Part of that is, like you said, having to sit up underneath somebody in shadow. So, right? So everybody has to go through it before you get into the official position. Again, for me, it's not like I'm complaining. It's just different for me because remember, like I was talking about in the last clip, I'm targeted. So weird circumstances are occurring while going through this process. My thoughts, again, being projected, being stared at on camera. Yes, there's a camera throughout the jail. That's how it is. You have to surveil everything. Everything needs to be surveilled. But then the little personal drones that are surveilling me because of my situation. So that's what makes it more unpleasant. That's what makes it more tedious and feel more like a strain. Like, okay, oh God, I can't wait to get through this portion of cadet training. That's what makes it worse. Anyway, y'all, so the whole reason I started making the video anyway, I knew when I came in that I would likely deal with certain things as far as sensitization goes or directed convo, certain things like that, because again, I am still targeted. So that's how it goes. It's not like it's going to stop because you're working. It continues until it's you figure out how to get out of the program, right? So even in a new position at a job, again, you're not going in with a clean slate. You're going in as a target, right? So you are going to likely deal with things. And I had that in mind. I already knew from orientation that that's likely what would be happening, right? As long as I can get the job done, it's cool, right? I can function with it. I've been dealing with this thing for 4 years. And again, actively working to get out of this program. But it was just so bad on Tuesday, what happened, that I decided, okay, I got to document. I got to make a video about this. So let me just scroll down to this video from last year, y'all, so I can talk about, basically, I guess you could call it a tactic or false narrative, i.e. tactic that's resurfaced from last year. Let me scroll down. So y'all see this video says part 3 example of the shadow networking software, right? And you can see the thumbnail says stalked by media. You can see a guy at the back of his blue sweater, right? And he has his back to us in the thumbnail. You see it's a 2-hour video. That's one of the best videos I've created, y'all, on this channel, right? Because I'm showing you an example of the shadow networking AI software that they use on targets. And not only am I showing you an example of how it's used, because I have, as you can see, that's a part 3 video. I have several different parts, I think like 7, if I'm not mistaken, where I have shown you all examples of what it looks like when they're using this technology on me. In this part 3 video, I'm actually showing you all them using it on another target. And this is actually the first target last year that I saw that was talking about what I had started to realize was shadow networking software. Again, I didn't know the term, right? I didn't know what it was called. I didn't learn what it was called until like towards the end of last year from Michael Barden, who's another target. He's not the target that I'm showing an example of in this video. In this video, I'm showing an example of a target named Truth Hurts Hypocrisy America. He actually hasn't posted in a while. I keep saying I hope he's okay. And I'm not with the title of his channel. That's just his title. I have nothing to do with that. I don't have anything against America. But the reason I'm saying I hope he's okay is because I like his content. And I learned a lot of stuff from his channel. I also learned a lot of stuff, like I said, from Michael Barden. So from him, I just basically had validation that my suspicions were correct. That they somehow had some sort of software where they can manipulate media. And they can hack your technological devices and send you videos or ads, etc., commercials, whatever, with sensitization in it to sensitize you. And so if you're not aware of this technology, you would think you're going crazy. You could successfully be gaslit into thinking that you have mental health issues or you're schizophrenic, etc. Because one of the symptoms of schizophrenia is feeling like the TV is talking to you. That's why there's a conspiracy theory out there that schizophrenia is like a fictitious mental illness, and what it really is a targeted individual, right? There's a debate out there. I've been doing my research. I can't really conclusively say that, for sure it's a fictitious mental illness and what it really is targeting. But what I can say is I did see a correlation between targeting, the symptoms of targeting, and the symptoms of schizophrenia. There's even a video I made last year that got deleted, right? About the schizophrenic on YouTube. And she has a lot of videos where she's sharing information about her experience as a schizophrenic. And she even did like a voiceover over this simulation of schizophrenia. You know how they have like simulator videos on YouTube where you can like put in to the title or the search, not the title. You can put in the search bar simulation of marijuana high, right? Or simulation of LSD high. And what's going to pop up is a video showing you a simulation of what it looks like when somebody's on LSD, or showing you a simulation of what it looks like when somebody's high on marijuana. Well, they have videos like that for schizophrenia. So you can type in simulation of schizophrenia and you'll see different videos pop up where they're showing you like this short clip, like maybe a 3 to 5 minute clip of like first person, the view supposedly out of someone with schizophrenia's eyes. And you're just seeing a simulation of what it looks like if you have that mental illness. And so this lady here on YouTube, she's diagnosed schizophrenia. She did a voiceover, right? Just comparing her experience to what the simulation was displaying. And I watched her video, her voiceover, and I'm like, this lady's targeted. Like everything she was describing, right down to feeling like ambulances and law enforcement was following her in vehicles. All of this and people were stalking her, i.e. gang stalking. All of it sounded like the targeted individual program. So I'm like, this lady is targeted. Like specifically her. Like her description was like a target. And even the simulation that she was doing a voiceover of, that was like the targeted individual. Even right down to the bird drones. You know how they use bird drones and bird sounds on targets? I have information about this technology, y'all, to validate your experience so you know you're not crazy. Check out the links in the description box in the comment section. They use military bird drones on targets. They use what's called MAVs, acronym for micro air vehicles, on targets, or mini air vehicles. So the insect drones would be considered an MAV. The bird drone, that's an MA. Well, I wouldn't say the bird drone is an MAV. I think the bird drone would just be an AV, right? An air vehicle. Because even though it's small, it's not micro. The micro air vehicles are more so like the mosquito drones or the gnats, the little small tiny gnats that you can't see unless they fly it in your face and purposely let you see it. And what I mean by can't see, it's not like they're invisible, but they're so small you don't really notice them unless they fly it in your face, right? So these are the things that are used to surveil targets. And these are some of the things I was seeing in a simulation. Like the guy was noticing flies a lot and he was hearing the birds in the background. They were like honing in on the bird sounds in the background. Like it was really pounding into his head and, hearing voices. I guess he was dealing with V2K. Not all targets deal with that. I'm blessed enough to not have dealt with that, right? I do strongly suspect that I've dealt with thought manipulation, which is a similar technology but not the same, and I've documented it, and it hasn't been a frequent occurrence, but I have not dealt with, to my knowledge, V2K. But that whole simulation was like a targeted individual simulator. I was like, wait a minute. I did my own little video last year about it, talking about it, right? And I took the video down. I'm mad I took it down. But I was getting a lot of backlash from my videos last year, and so I took some of them down. And then majority of my videos, right, the ones where I was actually on camera, I explained to you guys how those got taken down. All of those were taken down because the computer I was using belonged to someone in my close circle, and she confiscated the computer. I forgot to sign out of my YouTube, and I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that she would have gone on my personal YouTube, being that I'm a grown woman, and go in and delete my videos, but she did that. And so last year I had to rebuild and recreate all the videos basically that got deleted. I wasn't even able to recreate really all the videos that got deleted, but I started slowly but surely building back up my channel and making informative videos as well as documenting my experience as a target. Anyway, so I did that video, and that one I took down myself. There were a couple of videos I took down myself last year, like 2 or 3. And that was one of them because I was getting backlash around the time, right? For making videos, and I had just started working again and I didn't want to lose my job. But from what I saw, it really looked like schizophrenia is the targeted individual program. So I can't, again, conclusively say that that's for sure the case, that schizophrenia is completely fictitious. But what I can say is that for sure, the targeted individual program emulates schizophrenia. And one of the main progenitors of the program, a Harvard DARPA scientist, right, Robert Duncan, who's now kind of talking about this thing more publicly, only because he doesn't agree with it being used on civilians without their consent. And he's realizing that that's what's being done with it. I have a video where I posted about him. Yeah, I'm going to go to that real quickly too. And then I'll come back to this part 3 video. Not trying to go off on a tangent, and I know I have a tendency of doing that, but I'm going to get back. This video, y'all, that says DARPA Harvard doctor, and he's a scientist / doctor, by the way, y'all. Robert Duncan exposes CIA mind control weapons still being used today. Check out that video, okay? Y'all see it's from a year ago. It's very informative, and it can validate your experience as a target. So if you ever feel like you're crazy or you're being gaslit you're being gaslit into thinking that you're crazy, you have evidence out there to validate your experience. Use my channel, man. I have so many videos up where I share credible sources, credible targets, reputable targets that validate the existence of this program. For example, this video, this is just one of many that I have. And this is one of the links, by the way, y'all, that's included in the description box and comment section. So that's why I said check out those links, because it's very informative. In this video, he's telling you really what the agenda supposedly, or one of the agendas of the targeted individual program really is. But not only that, he's talking about the neuromonitoring technology that's utilized on targets. So this goes even deeper than just the last video. I was just talking about what you guys that I kind of went off on the tangent on, right? That where I was showing you the example of the AI shadow networking software. This is another form of technology. It's technological, y'all. It's a high science program. It's all technology. So not only are they hacking all your technological devices like your phone, your computer, laptop, whatever, and actually sending you things with subliminal messaging in it to sensitize you and make you feel like you're going crazy, or make you feel like the TV's talking to you, but then they're actually microchipping you with microchips and nanobots and these like microscopic mini robots. That's what nanobots are. And those things are so small they can cross the blood-brain barrier, hook up to your nervous system, and then from there they can hook you up to a computer system. It's called brain-to-computer interface. And so that's how they can hear your thoughts, they can see your thoughts, they can push thoughts in your head. If they want, they can control your body. I have videos talking about that as well, y'all. Again, that's linked in the description box and comment section. So it's really high science. It's a high science thing, and we're in a technological age right now, y'all. You know, not too many people are familiar with what's really going on, but we are in a very advanced high science society right now. And I'm just learning about this, really. Like, I knew about technology and I knew about certain things existing in the world, but I didn't know like the level or the depth or the brevity of the thing until I got in this thing here and I started being targeted and I got microchipped and this stuff started being used on me, and I started doing research because of the way my mind works, and I wanted to validate the things I'm experiencing because I know I'm not crazy. And so that's why I put these videos together, man. Anyway, let me go back down though, y'all. Up. By the way, y'all, this is another video linked in the description box and comment section that talks about this technology. Look at the bottom, right? You see the thumbnail that has the blue brain with the big yellow microchip? And it says evidence of mind control technology used on targets. Check that out as well, y'all. Good info. Anyway, so back to this part 3 example of shadow networking software video, y'all. Because I went off on a tangent talking about the technology, but there's a reason, again, why I went off on the tangent. Y'all heard that it was all relative, what I was sharing with you. But just talking about how this thing is like psychological warfare, right? And how, again, I can't confirm for sure that schizophrenia is fictitious completely. Like, there's no mental illness that exists that's like that. But I can prove to you that the targeted individual program emulates schizophrenia. And that was why I scrolled down to that video that I just showed you all, because in that video, Robert Duncan is explaining, the agenda of the program, but he's also explaining the different elements of it and the fact that it emulates schizophrenia. So it is meant to emulate schizophrenia. He didn't say that schizophrenia is completely fictitious. He did not say that. But he did say that the targeted individual program emulates schizophrenia. And from the research I've done, it looks to me like that's what's going on as well, right? That's what the conclusion I've come to as well. And I might make a video about that in the future. I don't think so. Y'all, I'm trying to stay clear of those things and stay out of trouble. But that's what it looks like to me. Now, whether or not schizophrenia truly exists or not, or if it's just all targeted individual shenanigans, I don't know. I can't confirm that. But I can confirm for sure that the targeted individual program emulates schizophrenia. Anyways, y'all, back on point. Back to what I was talking about, because I don't want this video to be too long. And I still need to document what happened with my second job, right? So anyways, y'all, in this part 3 example of the shadow networking software video, I'm just talking about the fact that they can collectively create a false narrative about you, basically, right? And perpetuate that false narrative, and whether it's true or not, it becomes your reality. And that's what's done with a lot of targets, by the way. Not just me. Specifically with me, they're pushing a lot of false narratives at me and purposely making it my reality, because they say that I bear false witness. If you listen to my story, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is going to sound foreign and confusing to you. If you're not familiar with my prior videos, you're not familiar with my story, then this is going to sound like foreign info to you, and you're not going to know what I'm talking about. And I'm not going to rehash and retell the story or talk about things I've talked about in prior videos, y'all. So if you're new, don't start here at this video. You'll be lost and confused, as I always say, right? But anyway, they say I bear false witness. And if you check out my story, you'll see that I've only technically bared false witness once in my early 20s. With the targeting and with the text message that I sent, I didn't bear false witness, but I made an insinuation and I asked a question in the text message. And so they treated that like I was bearing false witness, or accusing, I guess you could say, the people in my close circle that lived with me of doing something that they weren't doing. It was PTSD and trauma, y'all. If you listen to my story, you'll hear what happened to me, right? Right before I graduated from school. In 2020, for half a year, I was living in Airbnbs. Not half a year, really, it was like a year and change I was living in Airbnbs. But the issue that I started, the issue I dealt with that created, I guess you could say, the PTSD, I dealt with that issue for half a year, right? In the last 3 Airbnbs that I stayed in. Those were long-term Airbnbs, and the ones I had stayed in prior were not, right? After that, when I came home, I moved back home after graduating. After dealing with whatever I dealt with in those Airbnbs, I had PTSD. And so I got in this fight with the people in my close circle. Stupid, minuscule fight. But it made me feel like they started doing what was happening to me in those Airbnbs. Like noise campaigns, basically, y'all. I was dealing with noise campaigns prior to becoming a target. Again, you'll have to listen to my story to hear how that happened, the details, etc. The links to the videos where I tell my story, y'all, remember I said this at the beginning, are located in the description box and comment section. There are several different video options you can choose from. Some are more detailed than others. Some expound on things more than others. I have different versions y'all can check out of my story. Different versions saying the same thing. Again, just some of the videos are more expressive, and I expound on things a little bit more. Anyway, so That was just basically PTSD, that text message. But they treated it like I was accusing the people in my close circle of doing whatever. It wasn't even heinous, the text message. There was no malicious intent, you can tell. You could tell there was no malicious intent behind the text message. So for things to have gone as far as it did, it baffles me. And then what baffles me more is that, now recently, like within the last 2 years specifically, I would even say this year, but not within the last 2 years since me making videos. Remember, y'all, let me just remind you, my targeting started in 2020, summer of 2020, when I moved back home, right? After I graduated from school. Sent the text message, became a target. For 2 years, I was here on an island dealing with targeting, and I didn't know I was a target. So I was ignorant to the fact that I was being targeted. Had never heard about it before. I just knew I sent the text message. Crazy things started happening. Started dealing with gang stalking. Started dealing with noise campaigns. Eventually, surveillance started happening. I started realizing I was being watched on camera. Absolutely no privacy. Wasn't dealing with neuromonitoring yet, to my knowledge. I didn't start dealing with the neuromonitoring technology until year 3 of my targeting, or the end of year 2 of my targeting. So for 2 years, I was dealing with whatever, right? I thought it was weird stuff going on the island that I was born and raised on. That's where the thing started. Again, moved back home with the people in my close circle, sent the text, and then weird stuff started happening. Stayed down here for 2 years dealing with that thing. I was teaching and I was doing security at night. Not trying to retell the story. Y'all already know the story. You should if you're here listening to this video. But I'm just quickly recapping, right? Things so we can talk about the bearing false witness thing a little bit. So anyways, I was here for 2 years dealing with whatever that started happening after I sent the text message. And I'm talking to the people in my close circle about what's happening. And they were gaslighting the heck out of me. Like every time I would try to bring up what was happening, they would act like I was crazy or I was hallucinating. Like, what noises? What are you talking about? You know how they do targets, like gaslighting, make you feel like you're crazy. And so I just was like, okay, they're taking this too far. I'm like, okay, so they're annoyed with me for sending the text message, obviously. They're doing this gaslighting, spiteful thing here now. When is it going to blow over? I'm thinking it's going to blow over. It kept blowing up more and more. I eventually got my own apartment. I'm used to living on my own anyways, been doing that since 18. I really just moved in with the people in my close circle for a couple months, just, obviously so I could start working and save money and get my own place. It's what I'm used to. So I got my own place and I got a car and stuff. I noticed I'm being surveilled in my apartment. Like I'm trying to cook food and stuff and, I'm hearing noise campaigns outside. I'm hearing noise campaigns from the apartment upstairs. Being followed on the roads eventually. It started turning into gang stalking on the roads where they're following me while I'm in my vehicle. Obviously, like I said, realized I was being watched on camera. The thing just kept getting worse and worse rather than blowing over like I thought it would. I thought if I got my own place, they would stop the strippiness. I didn't know they were going to spread the thing and lamb blast it. And everybody on island was going to get, be privy to whatever. That's what started happening. It started blowing up long before I ever made videos, y'all. I didn't say a thing. I didn't say boo peep. Nothing. I didn't say a thing. 2 years I dealt with this thing. I didn't say a thing. Because they keep gaslighting me about these videos and trying to almost like negate what took place prior to me making the videos and make it all about the videos. Like this is what's causing it. It's because she has a big mouth and she won't stop talking. Hello? What about what happened 2 years prior when I tried to relocate off island? I had to run from my home because they gaslight me about running too. They keep throwing the word run at me. Yeah, hell yeah, I ran. To me, it's like, that's gaslighting. Why wouldn't I run? If you send an innocent text to people that you trust and the thing gets blown up and then all this crazy stuff, you're not familiar with targeting, because at the time I wasn't. All this crazy stuff starts happening. You start getting stalked and surveilled and all this craziness. Aren't you going to run too? Especially if you're talking to the people in your close circle about what's happening and asking them, why is this happening? And they're acting like you're crazy and like what's happening isn't happening. What are you going to do? There's no reprieve. So what are you going to do? You're going to stay there and continue to deal with the craziness, or you're going to try to leave and start over elsewhere? That's what I did, and I didn't know the thing was going to follow me either. I really didn't, because I hadn't committed a crime and I hadn't done anything wrong. So anyways, y'all, after 2 years of dealing with the craziness, and realizing the thing actually went into my damn apartment and that they were following me in vehicles, I resigned from my teaching job and I resigned from the security job I was working. Good job, y'all. I had a car, I had an apartment, and I had a good job. But I'm like, okay, this is craziness that's taking place here on island, right? The thing's blowing up rather than blowing over. I'm not getting any help from the people in my close circle. In fact, they're acting like what I'm talking about isn't happening. So I'm like, okay, well, let me just start over somewhere else. Like, I'm not, again, aware of this thing. I didn't know this thing even existed. I didn't even know what the hell a Target was. I had never heard about the shit in my life, and most people haven't. It's like this covert operation type thing that you don't really learn about unless you somehow become a part of it. Whether that be from becoming targeted, or becoming a gang stalker, or just becoming a bystander. Someone on the side that's, happens to be privy to what's going on, but you choose not to get involved. Those are the ways that you come into contact with this thing. Other than that, you never hear about it because it's not something that's televised. It's not something that they really teach you about when you're growing up. And when you do see stories about targets on TV, they never tell you that the person was targeted. It'll be a story like, I'm not going to really show an example. Like some crazy shit popped off with this person. You see them did some crazy shit, right? You'll see us like a lot of these news stories you see where there was some crazy shit that this person did, like this mass crazy shit that this person did, and you don't know why they did it. And they'll tell you the person had mental health issues, and you didn't know that person was targeted. A lot of those people you see on TV where you see stories like that, I'm learning now as a target that these people were targeted and they went off the rocker is basically what happened. Right? It's a diabolical program that's happening here on American soil. And it's happening to innocent individuals too. Right? So anyways, you got to be mentally strong in this thing. And some people don't have the mental fortitude to deal with this thing. And so that's why you see sometimes these stories where you see this person did this crazy thing and all you'll hear in the story is that they had mental health issues. And they're never going to tell you that that person was being stalked and harassed and abused 24/7. They're not going to tell you that. Anyway, so back to what I was saying though, y'all. So basically just tried to relocate off island because I'm like, this is crazy what's happening. The people in my close circle are not acknowledging what's happening to me. They're actually treating me like I'm crazy, and I know what's happening is happening. I know I'm not crazy. And so I was like, okay, well, let me just relocate. I have a good resume, right? I have my degree, graduated magna cum laude. I'm like, okay, whatever. Start reaching out to different places, looking at different states, trying to figure out where I was going to go and what I was going to do, right? So initially, when I was leaving, I was thinking I was going to just continue to do what I have been doing for years. I was going to get back into teaching. So I was in communication with different schools in different places. I was in communication with some schools in New York. I was in communication with some schools in Florida. But I wasn't really thinking about Florida hardcore like that. I didn't know this thing was going to follow me. But even still not knowing that it was going to follow me, I didn't want to be in Florida. I just felt like that was too close to home with everything that was happening. I just felt traumatized because, again, it was 2 years of dealing with it. So I was just like, I need to go far away and start over where nobody knows me because I don't know why the hell this thing blew up the way that it did, but it did. And yeah, time to start over. That was my mindset, right? Y'all, somebody's pulling up. I'm going to finish the video. Probably my supervisor. I'll finish in a second. Hey, y'all. It was my supervisor. So let me go ahead and finish, Joe. Excuse me. So yeah, I was just, not understanding why the thing blew up the way it did. Or why it was lasting for so long. Like, I thought it would be like, okay, maybe a week or two they would do that dumb shit. Whatever it was that was going on. Excuse me, I didn't think the thing was going to extend into year 2, 3, 4. I'm like, what the heck? Well, now I know I'm targeted. But I mean, those first 2 years before I knew or learned that I was a target, I was just like, oh my God, what the heck? Right? So anyways, like I was telling y'all, the intention at first was to get into teaching, just get back into teaching. But then I decided that I wanted to do something that would make more money, right? And I was telling you I was in communication with a few schools. I was thinking about a place to stay, the fact that I'm starting over. I only had $4,000 in my name. A lot of money was being spent frivolously. I had gone through 2 different vehicles that I paid off in full. Both of those vehicles had gotten in car accidents. I got in car accidents with both of those vehicles, and I was at fault. Due to the targeting, y'all. Because they say I don't take accountability for things, but also it's almost like an element of gaslighting where they're not validating my experience. It's just like this. You did this thing instead of cause and effect. Like, okay, yeah, the effect was the car accident. What was the cause? Causation. Because there's a whole reason why in court they have the whole mental health element of things. Because that does play a factor in things, realistically. If you're not mentally stable, or if you're going through some sort of mental duress, when something occurs, they do take that into consideration in the courtroom, and that's for a reason, right? That's why you can plead temporary insanity or insanity. There's a reason why that is the case. It's true. So anyways, prior to age 30, I had never been in a car accident, y'all. Not even a speeding ticket. Then my targeting starts here on Island, right? And after a year of targeting, I got in 2 back-to-back car accidents in the same year. After a year of targeting and them following me in vehicles on the road. And then they would gaslight me and make it seem like I was just being a reckless driver, and I'm not. This is how the targeting works, just so that's an example when I say gaslighting, right? Or reactive abuse, because that is a form of reactive abuse too, right? Because that reckless driving was a reaction to being stalked on the roads, and I got gaslit for that reaction and for the fact that I got into the accident. Oh, you're just a reckless driver, not taking into consideration the fact that I had been driving for 15 years prior to those accidents, because I started driving at age 15, y'all. Never even got a speeding ticket. And now I become targeted. Coincidentally, a year into the targeting, I get into 2 back-to-back car accidents. And I totaled 2 cars that I paid off in full. I worked hard, worked my ass off, working 2 jobs. I told y'all that my salary in 2022 was $60,000. That's because I was working 2 jobs. I was busting my ass. And I paid 2 cars off in full, and both of those cars got in back-to-back car accidents. So they were trying to gaslight me for a while until I made my videos, and then they stopped. It's just crazy. Like, that's why I make the videos, though, because if I didn't do these videos and, like, articulate certain things or try to refute certain narratives, they would just run with whatever. It would just be, that's just how it would be if I didn't, like, defend myself and stand up for myself. Anyway, so that's what made me, like, start looking into other careers other than just teaching, because, yeah, I like teaching and I had the experience, but let's keep it real. Teachers don't get paid much. We make, not minimum wage, of course not, but we make a middle class salary, right? And on the low level too, on the low end, especially when you first start out. I was making, as a teacher, if you didn't include the extra income I was getting from security, my salary was $44,000, and then there's a lot of deductions taken out too, right? So at the end of the day, every 2 weeks I was taking home $1,082. So that's not bad pay if you're a single girl like how I am and was, and you don't have children. But if you're trying to pay off car accidents that you got into, so not only now trying to recover from the 2 cars that I lost, but now having to also pay off cars that I damaged, that's not enough money anymore, right? And then I don't even have a vehicle anymore to get around, so the security was difficult. I didn't even think I would be able to do the security anymore. It was just difficult, and things were blowing up. So for me, I was like, okay, yeah, the teaching's nice and I could get into that, but I want something that's going to make a lot of money so I could pay these car accidents off and get on my feet and start over. So at first, initially, I was in contact with some schools, and I was looking for a place to stay and stuff, and I only had $4,000. That's how I went off on a tangent. $4,000 saved to my name. Excuse me, and obviously some some pending debt, right? Because of those car accidents. I was like, let me try to look into something more lucrative that I can make quick money fast and try to pay these things off and get on my feet and start over. And so that's when I came across trucking. I was just doing research and looking into stuff. And I came across trucking. And I saw that the truckers were making big money, like buku money, like big money, man. I saw some truckers were coming home with a salary of like $100K, like 6 figures, some of them, right? And so I was like, wait a minute, I could do this. Like, I like driving. I like traveling. Yeah, it's like somewhat of a free, I want to say free, really. I want to say free position where you can kind of do what you want to do. Yes and no. In a way, it's free up where it's like you don't have someone micromanaging you on top of your back, right? But at the same time, there are deadlines and you do have to meet certain deadlines, right? With the loads that you're traveling with. But other than that, it's kind of like you're doing your own thing. You're on the truck and you're doing your own thing. As long as you're hitting your deadlines, you're good to go. So to me, it just sounded like something I would enjoy doing with the personality that I have. I'm like, I could do this, man. I can make this money quick and pay these car accidents off, and then also enjoy traveling while I'm doing it and seeing different states. And I can start over, right? And get on my feet. So that was my plan. And I was also looking into like eventually, becoming like an owner operator and purchasing a truck. So I didn't have to work for a company. So I really would be my own boss. And I was looking at getting an LLC. And I was like, then I could own my own business. Like, I'm really pulling the big bucks, because I saw a lot of people like are doing that. Like, the stripper did it. I was looking at her videos. She was a stripper in the strip club, trying to make money for her and her child. Like, respect, no judgment there. She got into trucking. She started out as a trucker, saved her money, purchased a truck, became an owner operator, then kept saving her money. Then she purchased like a fleet of trucks. Then she got her LLC, and then she became like a millionaire. So this is all the stuff was going through my head, and not realizing you're a target. Like, this is not how it's going to work for you, sweetheart. Like, I wasn't thinking that. I'm just like, okay, so this crazy shit popped off here. Let me start over somewhere else and I can do all this, right? My mind always works at that. Like, I'm always thinking about how I can, plotting and planning in a good way. Like, how I can be successful or make things work for me. And I didn't know that this thing was happening, man. And pending up and gonna follow me and like all this stuff that happened, man. So anyway, so that's what happened. I left, tried to, do the things that I had looked up and planned out. I sat there carefully for months planning this thing out. And I had 4,000, like I said, and change. Almost 5,000 saved to my name. Went up, y'all know what happened, because I'm repeating the story and I'm not meaning to. The thing blew up, ended up coming back to Island, doing research and learning that this whole thing I had been experiencing for the last 2 years was targeting. I'm a target. That's why the thing followed me. So when I got back to Island, that was when I really did research and realized, oh, so that's what's been going on. I'm a target. And that was when I started making videos. I was like, nah, man, like, I'm targeted. I'm a whole target because I sent a text. And that was what led to me starting these videos and telling my story and whatever, because I'm not the kind of person that makes videos. I don't talk my business or other people's business. It's never been me. And anybody that really knows me knows that's the case. In fact, it's quite the contrary. It's to the point where it's hard to get info out of me. I'm a very private person. And anybody that knows me knows that. Anyway, so I just started to, like, the floodgates were open. The floodgates were open. My mouth started to run like water. I just started telling my story. And once I started doing that, it became addictive, making these videos and advocating for myself, especially after feeling silenced and like I was dealing with all this crazy shit for 2 years. I just started making videos like crazy. I was telling my story. Obviously some people were involved in my life story and I got backlash for that. I didn't say names, but regardless, it's a small island. So I got backlash for that, but you have to understand most of the people watching already were watching with critical, judgmental eyes and with a subjective mindset. So they were coming in with biased feelings towards me already. So anything that I said would have been problematic anyways. Especially with the reactions I had in the mainland when I tried to relocate, realized that the thing followed me, and then it blew up, right? I came home with the targeting worse than what it was when I left. So that's all what played a part in things getting so bad for me too. So the videos, I said this in the last video, I think is where I said that, this here. The videos were like, they had some sort of, it was like this kind of paradoxical effect, right? Kind of, right? Like where it's like it helped me because I was able to tell my story and clear my name and advocate for myself, but then it also created more enemies too and created more problems for me because of certain things I talked about. And then it turned into that bitch doesn't shut up, or she talks too much, or she's always talking about people. It's like, you can't win when you're a target. Had I stayed silent, then it would have been the same continued treatment and the false narrative that was perpetuated from the text message. But now I'm talking, I'm telling my videos, I'm telling my story. Oh, she's always talking about people. It's like a lose-lose when you're targeted. So anyways, so trying to get back to the point, y'all, because I want to hurry up and wrap this up. This video's getting to be too long. What's going on? So anyway, so in this video, y'all, in the part 3 example of shadow networking software, why did I go off on a tangent talking about that stuff, y'all? There was a reason why. There's always a reason why. Oh my God. That's crazy. That I forgot why I went off on a tangent, y'all, but I know I'll listen back and realize, and I know y'all, obviously you've been listening to the video, you know why I went off on the tangent. But getting back to the point, y'all. So this part 3 example of shadow network. Oh, I think I was just trying to talk about the bearing false witness. So when I told the story, I was explaining, the text message and why I sent it, and the fact that me even thinking that the people in my close circle were out there making noises in the hallway was PTSD. So it wasn't me just sitting there making like this random crazy, accusation, and it wasn't even an accusation anyways. It was an insinuation and a question. So I was really just asking them, like, are y'all out there doing whatever? Because, it kind of sounds like I'm hearing noises now after this fight. This isn't verbatim what was said in the text, but it's like the gist of what was said. And I said, y'all wouldn't gaslight me, right? I asked them that. I didn't say, y'all are gaslighting me. I didn't accuse them. I said, y'all wouldn't gaslight me, right? I asked them because I had just dealt with that for half a year in Florida in those last 3 Airbnbs that I had stayed in. Again, you'll have to listen to my story, y'all, to know what I'm talking about. So anyway, that's what created the targeting. It's crazy, but that led to 4 years of me being I'm still targeted to this day. I'm targeted still. So anyways, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, y'all. So example of shadow networking. Yeah, so that's where the bearing false witness thing came from. Basically, it was when I decided to finally start making videos and advocating for myself at the end of 2022. And I made those videos where I told my story and I talked about some people that were involved in my story. They felt like I bared false witness. Like 2 main things. First of all, the text message thing, they using that, the whole thing that started the targeting, they're using that as an example of me bearing false witness. The thing with the cyber stalking, cyberbullying guy, where I truly did, about a decade ago, when him and I were still talking as friends, I did bear false witness back then and accuse him of setting me up with this roommate of mine that things had went bad with. I was accusing him back then. It's almost a decade ago, and I dealt with like years and years of cyberbullying because of the situation. So I already paid for that. I only talked about him in my recent videos too, y'all, by the way, because they created a false narrative with that too, because of what happened when my gang stalking started and when my targeting started recently in 2020. At the time, my family, coincidentally enough, that's how small this island is, they were coincidentally renting a house in the neighborhood where that guy's family lives, a lot of his family, like literally a hop and a skip away from, his father's house. And so when the targeting started, and the gang stalking started, and they started watching me and surveilling me on camera, in that neighborhood, there were a lot of noise campaigns and gang stalking activity taking place, and his family was involved, as well as mine, right? And there was even a night, this was before I left island. This was before I tried to relocate off island. This was before I ever started making videos. There was a night where I was in the shower, because one of the gang stalking tactics they used to do a lot before I left island. They still do it sometimes to me, but not as bad as before I left island. One of the main tactics they were using was taking a car. And they were doing that a lot last year when I was in that same neighborhood. By the way, we just moved out of that neighborhood last year, summer of last year. My parents were living in there for quite a few years, like maybe 3 or 4 years they were living in that neighborhood. So all when my targeting started in 2020, they were living in that neighborhood. All the way up until when I tried to relocate in 2022, they were still living there. And when I came back on island at the end of 2020, the summer of 2022, they were still in that neighborhood. So anyways, before I left island and before I ever started making videos or talking about anything, his family was in there doing noise campaigns as well as mine, right? And so you have to understand, I didn't know I was a target at the time, by the way. I just knew this weird thing was happening. And now you're not only talking about the people in my close circle, doing noise campaigns on me is what's going on. I'm trying to be careful with my words. This is what was happening. But now you're involving the guy that kind of led to me being cyber stalked and cyber bullied, even though it was my fault. I did falsely accuse him. Yes, but I was cyber stalked and cyber bullied for years after that situation. You're linking up with his family, and all of you are surveilling me on camera and noise campaigns are happening. And then you wonder why I made videos. And I I still didn't make videos right away either. This is what baffles me as to why I got such backlash for it. I tried to relocate off island. The thing followed me, blew up. I came home and decided to tell my story. I'm not allowed to talk about that? Like, that was crazy to me. How I got gaslit about it and how they painted this false narrative and I was the villain in the situation. So anyways, when I got back in Ireland and I started making videos, we were still living in that neighborhood. And before I left Ireland, in that neighborhood, they kept taking the current, like I said. And there was a night when they actually took the current while I was in the shower. They used to do that a lot, do stuff like that. Like while I'm washing my face or doing my hair, they used to do that a lot. Washing my hair, they used to love to take the current during those times. And so this night in question, I had just come from working out, so I had gotten back into fitness before I left Ireland, y'all. I had started getting back into fitness before I left Ireland, just so you know. I had started, remember I told you I've worked out off and on throughout the years. A recent on time for me was before I left Ireland in 2022 in that neighborhood. I had a bike, an old bike that I had purchased. I purchased a used bike and I used to ride through the hills in that neighborhood, and then I would ride next door to the other neighborhood. And I had some dumbbells in the house that I was using to do lunges and squats. So I was working on it. I had a jump rope too. I had a whole routine that I was doing before I tried to relocate off island. So prior to the end of last year, where I got back into working out again to heal my body and got back into the gym, I was working out also before I left island. So anyways, I just remember that. I was just thinking about that, too. So anyways, I had just got back from doing a workout and I was in the shower. And I had a turmeric mask on my face. This was before I tried to relocate off island, y'all, in 2022 when I still lived in that old neighborhood. And I was in the shower, washing the turmeric mask off my face. It was nighttime, y'all. I'm hearing goats outside. And a lot of times, that guy's father used to be outside in the field that was right outside the bathroom window and right outside our house, grazing goats. It's just that type of neighborhood. Most of the people in there were related and knew each other. And, so the plots of land belonged to most of them in there, right? The family. We were like outsiders, you could say. And I'm not saying outsiders in a kind of like, trying to isolate us or anything. Obviously, my family befriended his family. But I mean outsiders as in like we didn't own land in there. We didn't own a house in there. They were like really just renting in there. My parents living in there was a relatively new thing. At the time when my targeting started, they had only been there for like two years. And then when we moved out last year, it was like about 4 years that they had lived in that neighborhood. Anyway, so it's not like I'm going to complain about his dad being in the grass outside, dealing with the goats, because that's something they do, right? But it's the fact that the noise campaigns were happening outside and, like I said, his family being a part of it, that's humiliating after years of being bullied from a situation. And then, that the person the situation derived from, their family gets to be a part of your targeting and they're linking up with your family. You're not supposed to talk about that? I don't understand it. So anyways, so they took the current this night. I was in the shower and I had the turmeric mask on my face. Took the current. So I was, feeling my way around the house like a blind woman looking for water to wash the mask off my face. I was pissed. I went to sit on the porch to cool off because I was so angry. I was like, man, I can't wait till I leave. I was just so vexed back then because the thing was blowing up and I didn't know why. And, then seeing that my dad was, linking up with, it just was a lot, man. So I hear laughing in the bush and stuff. I look over the balcony. It was a 2-story house. I see down in the bush, my dad is in the bush with his dad. And they're laughing and doing what sounded like directed convo. Where they like do these conversations that, it's like fictitious. Like it's not fictitious. Obviously they were really friends or whatever, or cool, whatever. But fictitious as in acting like the current just genuinely left. Like they don't know that it's targeting or gang stalking. They're laughing like, whoa, the current's gone. Oh my gosh, wow. And just cracking up. And I just was so pissed. I remember just being so pissed, like not flipping out, but I was so angry. I cussed. Like I was like, man, I can't wait to fucking whatever I said. I can't wait to fucking get off this island or whatever thing I said, because I was just so angry at the time when I was being stalked and harassed. And then it's like now my dad's befriending what felt like my bully's dad. Like this is what it felt like. Just so you can understand. Again, I understand that I was the cause to that, to the cyber stalking. I get it, right? It went on for a long time, kind of like this, longer than I think it should have. But I understand I was the cause of that, right? Whatever. I let that be whatever. Bygones be bygones. But now I'm here getting targeted and you're in the bush befriending his dad and all this humiliation. I'm in the shower naked with my mask on and You're laughing in the bush with his dad? And I still didn't make videos. Instead, again, let me reiterate, I tried to relocate off island. The thing blew up, followed me, blah, blah, blah. Got back to island, started making the videos and defending myself and telling my story, and that was a part of the story. A very relative, recent part of the story. I don't understand why I got the gaslighting for that. So anyways, so that's another thing they say I bear false witness with, though. That guy, the cyber-stalking, cyberbullying guy. Even though it was over a decade ago when I bared the false witness on him. The only reason he was even mentioned in my stories was, again, because his family was a part of the gang stalking noise campaigns that took place in that neighborhood. That was the only reason he got mentioned in my videos. So that, I got backlash for that. And then the thing with my roommate, where I said, I don't even want to rehash that thing, y'all. I'm not going to talk too much about that. But basically where I was saying that I felt like she might have done witchcraft on me, you know, when she and I were roommates in our early 20s. And the only reason I felt so was because, again, I didn't know about the technology yet. I was just learning about it when I first created my video. My first video at the end of 2022, and I was telling my story. And I was talking about basically the fact that I felt like, you know, this was witchcraft. It felt weird. You know, it was just like all of the things that was happening felt so weird. Like, how does it work out so perfectly that this targeting thing starts? My family just happens to be renting a house in the neighborhood where the cyberbullying situation, you know, occurred. Happens to be renting a house in his family's neighborhood. His family gets to be a part of it. Things are just falling into place perfectly. I tried to leave. The thing blows up. I didn't do anything. You know, they were using a shadow networking AI software on me, what you see in this video, right? Stalked by the media. The same thing I was telling you guys about, that AI software they have where they can hack your technological devices and send you things to subliminally to program your brain, right? To sensitize you. All of that was happening and I hadn't learned about it yet. You remember I said for the last 2 years I've been doing research and learning everything that I know now. So at the end of 2022, I had just relocated back. I had just come back to island from trying to relocate and the thing blowing up, the targeting. I had just done research and learned that I was a target. So at that time, I didn't know about the technology, right? I was just learning about stuff. So when I made that initial video telling my story, all of it felt weird to me and spiritual. Like it felt like some sort of witchcraft had been done on me, because I'm like, how is it that, you know, everything I put on it seems like it's almost talking to me and perpetuating this false narrative. And then I have all these people staring at me, so they're seeing my awkward reaction and thinking that this is some sort of spiritual intervention, right? And I know I didn't do anything. So for me, I'm like, this is witchcraft. This is what I thought. I really thought so. And I was raised in a household where that was believed, not practiced, certainly not practiced, but that was something that was believed. We were even told stories from my grandma. I keep telling y'all this in several videos. That was from Trinidad. She used to tell us all kinds of stories about that stuff. And be careful, you know, this person could do this and that. And telling us all kind of stuff, man. So we grew up believing it. And then all this weird stuff happened to me, and I know I didn't do it. Even now, I still feel like it's weird, to be quite real with you. But I'm not like hardcore accusing anyone of anything. I just think it's really weird still. The level of punishment for attacks, like it still is very weird and mind-boggling to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's very strange to me still. Anyway, so nonetheless, I told what happened with this roommate, right? In my early 20s, I talked about the experience with her and how she was going through some things, and prior to living with me, she was having issues in several other places she had been at, and she was acting kind of dark when she was living with us, and we saw some strange stuff in the apartment. And that was why I thought whatever I thought. So when I was telling my story, it's like, I think someone did witchcraft on me, and I didn't hardcore accuse her either. I just made an insinuation, and I said it could have been this roommate, and here's why. And I talked about what happened with her. And I even talked about these other 2 girls that it could have been, that my sister and I made friends with, that were also on some strange stuff. Like, my sister and I, we made a lot of friends when we were younger. We were very open. And so we had all kinds of friends. We had, like, cool friends. We had friends that were more so eclectic and eccentric and all kinds of different people. My sister and I did not discriminate. We made a lot of friends, and some of them were on some stuff. I'm going to say. So I was just wondering, like, did one of these people that we opened ourselves up to do something to me? I was really wondering. Because I've experienced a lot of strange things over the last 10 years, if you listen to my story. But the strangest thing yet has been this targeting. So anyway, that's what it was. Those three main things: the text message, the thing with the cyber stalking, cyberbullying guy, and the thing with my roommate. That's why they're claiming that I bear false witness. And so that's why they're pushing all these false narratives at me purposefully. And then the things I've said in between, just making my video documenting what's been happening to me and the targeting and saying certain things and being watched with a critical eye and being judged because, again, they already have a preconceived notion of who they think I am. They're biased and subjective, a lot of them, because I did say offensive things during the targeting in reaction to being targeted. So, it's just like a lot of whatever I say, it's going to just be problematic, considered problematic anyways, because it's me. It's just that's just what it is. So anyways, that's why they push a lot of false narratives at me, though. It's to spite me and malign me because they feel like I bear false witness, and they're always throwing the word lie at me, a liar. But ironically enough, I'm actually so real, and that's what gets me in problems. And they know that too because they've even sent that to me as well. I told you guys in, not the last video, it was the initial video where I was talking about the orientation, how they were talking about that lady that was really offensive, right? And she was being, good because she was being honest and real, but the thing she was saying was super offensive. So it is what it is, y'all. But anyways, sorry guys, I'm at work and I'm really tired. And I'm just doing too much talking. I'm realizing I'm doing too much talking and I want to get to the point, right? So I can talk about what happened with the security job today. I want to hurry up and wrap up this thing about corrections, what happened with the day job. So anyway, in this part 3 video though, y'all, not only am I showing you an example of them using the AI shadow networking software on Truth Hurts Hypocrisy America, that target, but then I'm also talking about how they push false narratives on targets because it's not just me. That's what made me go off on the tangent and kind of start rehashing or retelling the story a little bit. What me specifically in my targeting, because, like I said, they consider me to be somebody that bears false witness, they're purposely pushing a bunch of false narratives at me to malign me. But with all targets, there is like some sort of smear campaign that takes place, and they do push false narratives towards all targets. And with the technology, they're very good at painting false narratives too, right? So that's really what you can see in this video is me just showing you an example of them using the technology on another target to humiliate him, sensitize him, roast him through the TV while he's being stared at by all these people, similar to what they do to me, but then also painting false narratives like what they do to me. And so I show you a clip of them doing that to him, and then the whole video is me just talking about the fact that they can all collectively change your reality. Like if they all collectively, and when I say all, not everyone's involved, but it's enough people to make a difference, right? Majority rules. There's a reason why that saying is a thing. If the majority decides to push this false narrative at you, and let's for instance give an example, pretend like you're stink, right? And this is actually what I'm going to talk about. If they decide to push a false narrative and pretend like you stink, and they all collectively get together and start acting that way, whether you stink or not, that becomes your reality. You become the stink girl. If they all act like you stink and like when you come around, you smell so bad and they're holding their nose and, it's like so unbearable. If they all act like that, you could come around them smelling like Dial soap, deodorant, and fresh mint breath. You are the stink girl, whether you smell good or not. And so that's really what I was talking about in this video, how they actually have the ability to change your reality, right? And then they can't change your perception. Whatever your perception is your perception. And if you know truly that you don't stink, then that's not going to change. But if they all collectively get together and project this false narrative your way, then that becomes your reality, because everywhere you go, everyone's acting like you stink. You become the stink girl. And that doesn't even have to be true. That becomes your reality. And so that's what I was talking about in that video. And that was 10 months ago, y'all, when they had started kind of trying to do that, randomly. If you listen to the video, when I started going around, they started trying to do that randomly. I forgot what made them start doing it. But in my story, I had talked about my roommate. And I wasn't trying to be a bully, because they painted like I was trying to be a bully when I said what I said. But no, I was more so just talking about her mental state, the mental state that she was in when she lived with us. And why I thought witchcraft was at play, because then something had happened to me at this call center job that resembled what was going on with her, but she truly had body odor. But she was going through what she was going through at the time, right? And so this is why I believe she was having body odor. She was going through a lot at the time. But not only that, um, even something with stealing, because they throw that at me too. They think I was exposing her business. I never said who she was. The reason I was, it would seem like exposing her business was I was trying to explain why I felt like she had done witchcraft. Because all the things she was going through when she and I lived together, I started going through, except I hadn't actually done those things. And so that's why I thought it was witchcraft. Like this thing with stealing, I'm not going to go into details about it. I got backlash for saying it. Again, I never said who she was. And this was in our early 20s. You know, I think the girl then got the thing expunged off her record. I think she's doing good now in life. I don't even know. I haven't spoken to her in years. But she was on the right track, man. Good girl, right? Just was having a bad time in life, a hard time in life, and made a mistake. That's what it was. You know, petty theft. Like, I think she was like grabbing some lip gloss and some eyeliner. She just had a bad habit of doing that. She had picked that up when we were in school. And so she got caught up doing it. And, you know, she told us what happened, and she told us that since she didn't have a record, they were going to give her a chance. And if she did, I forgot what it was. I think community service or something like that. It was supposed to be expunged off her record. But I was just talking about it in my story because I was trying to explain why I felt like witchcraft was on me. Again, not knowing about the technology and the capabilities yet, just they were using it on me. And it felt weird. So I was like, what the hell is this? So that was why I thought so. But then also some things I had experienced prior to my targeting. Like shortly after she got caught in Walmart doing that, I had gotten a job in Walmart in my early 20s. And the asset protection man, if you listen to my story, you'll hear the story about the asset protection man and how this happened. He started thinking I was stealing when I hadn't stolen a thing. You know, similar to the targeted individual thing that I'm dealing with now. It's just been like weird situations like that throughout the years, but it's now to the point where I'm a target. Where it's like I'm getting in trouble for things I didn't do. It's this weird thing. So anyways, after the Walmart, then I started working at this call center. And I had never had an issue with my breath. I always had a fear of it. But I had never actually had somebody say your breath stinks. And what it was I have a stuffy nose, basically, a runny nose. I've talked about this in prior videos, y'all. So another thing that y'all are just going to have to check out my prior videos for. Not going to go into the details again. But since birth, I've had this thing where my nose is always stuffy. It's clear snot. It's not an infection. It's not sinusitis. From what I was told by a nose and ear doctor in my childhood, I was told that it's some sort of deformity where I have like extra tissue in my nose that needed to be removed, basically. So my nasal passages are super small and it's causing some sort of post-nasal drip, right? Constant post-nasal drip. Doctor gave my mom the option of if I was going to get the surgery or not. My mom gave me the option. I chose not to get it, right? So for years, I've had a stuffy nose. It's just how it is. My nose is always stuffy, right? And it's exacerbated depending on my environment. Like if I'm in AC or, you know, it just depends on my environment. It'll be worse or whatever. Anyway, so just knowing that my nose was always running, I always had this fear of bad breath. Because I know people, when they have a cold, typically the breath stinks. And most people know that. Like a lot of people, like I know that don't have bad breath, because I know some people that have had bad breath. They just have bad breath. I think they're not brushing their teeth good. But I've known some people that have had not bad breath, like they have decent breath, and then they got sick, and I'm talking to them and their breath was barking. I'm like, shit, you know, and I'm just like, I know it's the cold, and most people know that. Cold stinks. It's a stink thing. It stinks. But not regular snot. Not like if it's the clear snot, like what's coming out my nose. It doesn't have a smell. But you know when you're sick and that nasty yellow snot is coming out and it stinks? That's what it is. I just kind of had this fear that even though the snot coming out of my nose is clear, I just always had this fear that, well, it's always running. What if it's causing some sort of bad breath, similar to like when someone has a cold? I always had that fear. And so that was why I was always very anal about brushing. And to be honest with you, I just always had a fear of BO in general because of the household I grew up in. Especially with my grandmother, the kind of grandma I had. She was kind of scornful, to be honest. That was one of her negative traits. She was a really good grandma, funny, hilarious, everything. But she was kind of scornful. I would say that was one of her negative traits. And she was very anal about body odor. And she was from Trinidad, you know, making sure we're using Dettol and Fabuloso and this and that. And you make sure you're smelling good. You know, you don't want to smell fresh. And even when we're seasoning meat, she wants us to make sure that we're putting vinegar and lemon. You don't want the meat to be fresh. Like, just, that's the type of thing I grew up listening to and stuff. So I'm just very anal about smell and stuff. And my cousins and my siblings, same way. We have that influence from my grandma. So I just always had a fear of body odor. And my dad's kind of funny too and anal. And he's old now, so it's not the same. But growing up, very anal and so OCD-like. And that's where a lot of my OCD came from too, actually. Anyway, so that was just always a fear of my body odor, like this phobia of mine, especially breath though, more than anything else. Like body, like, that's easy to you smell good. As long as you washing yourself and you put on deodorant and lotion, you should be smelling good, unless you have some sort of internal thing going on that you need to see a doctor about. But the breath thing is like, I felt like, what if this is something I can't help? Like, I'm brushing my teeth good, but what if it's the snot? What if my breath stinks? That was my fear, right? So it was always a phobia of mine. And my sisters and them used to tease me, and my cousin and them, they used to tease me about it when I was in high school. He's like, Reefy, your breath don't stink. That's my nickname, Reefy. Like, I always ask them, popping mints and gum and stuff, and always asking them, especially if I was going to, like, see somebody, talk to somebody, ask them, does my breath stink? Does my breath stink? Like, paranoid about it, because of the stuff he knows, and they're always just laughing at me, like, Reefy, your breath don't stink, laughing at me. So anyways, now fast forward to years later in my early 20s, I had worked several jobs where I was in people's face and stuff, and nobody had ever acted like my breath stunk. Now, after living with this roommate who did have BO, and again, I believe it was her situation, right? Why she had the BO that she had. I think she really had like a lot, I know she had a lot going on. And, I think she was just skipping out on the hygiene some days. I think she was just that, whatever was going on with her. But now I have this situation where I go in this call center. First it's the Walmart. The stealing thing happened that resembled what happened to her, except I hadn't done anything. Then I go to this call center, right, where I'm having to sit in close proximity. Y'all, the plane is flying at this hour? This is bonkers. The plane never flies at this hour, y'all. It's 4:32 a.m. The plane never flies by at this hour. This is crazy. Anyway, so then I go to work at this call center, and anyways, y'all, so then I go to work at this call center, and it's training in close proximity, right? So it's where I'm having to sit up underneath somebody all day long on the phone making phone calls. So kind of similar to what I'm doing as a cadet, but worse, because I was sitting right up under the person and we're both making phone calls, and I wasn't wearing a mask at the time either. You're in AC all day long too. So you're dealing with dry mouth. If you don't constantly drink water, your mouth getting dry. That can cause bad breath too, by the way, y'all, if your mouth gets dry. Right? You know how some people sit in the office all day and you talk to them and they're, the mouth working? That's dry mouth. That's from having dry mouth and not drinking water and hydrating your mouth and stuff. That can cause bad breath too. So I know about all that stuff because I've been paranoid about the things since childhood, y'all. So I know about all of it and the things to do to keep your mouth smelling good, because I've been doing it since I was younger, because I've always had a phobia of having bad breath. So anyways, so I'm in there in this call center, and I remember just having to sit up underneath the lady and not feeling comfortable being that close in someone's face all day long in the AC. I just felt uncomfortable about it. And so anytime she would talk, I would move back. And anytime I would talk, I would move back. I was doing this thing where I kind of sit back in my seat. And so I saw her kind of just like look at me the screw face kind of way one day when I was doing it. And I wasn't trying to be scornful or disrespectful. It was really a phobia. And she don't understand it's a phobia that I was having rather than me being scornful. Because I did smell her breath, but it wasn't like bad. It just smelled like breath. Like when you're close to somebody, you smell breath? Like it just smelled like breath. It's not like she had bark breath. One of the ladies I was training with did. Her breath was smelling like coffee and fatata. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was barking. But I'm never gonna, even if I've smelled people's breath before, I'm not gonna act like your breath stinks if it stinks. And most people typically don't do that. Like, if your breath stinks, they're probably like, damn, in your head, you're probably like, shit, this person's breath is kicking. But you're not gonna act, out of courtesy, you're not gonna be obvious about the fact that the person's breath stinks. So even that in and of itself just tells you that this is a tactic that they're doing. You're not gonna be so blatant about the fact that somebody's mouth stinks. Most people don't do that out of courtesy. So it's to tell you it's like this tactic they're doing on me. I'm gonna get to it in a minute, right? So anyways, this other lady that was training with me, her breath didn't stink. It just smelled like breath. It wasn't like no big odor like that I couldn't take, right? But I was just moving back out of my own fear and phobia, right? So when she talked, I'm moving back. When I'm speaking, I'm moving back. I saw her watch me screw face. Next thing you know, I just noticed it turned into this thing in a call center where they're all like doing this thing where they're like snickering, and when I'm walking by, pinching their nose, right? And it started turning into this pinch nose thing, right? And so it was like this little passive aggressive bullying thing that I foolishly talked about in my full story and gave as ammo to the freaking gang stalkers. But not just that, I also had told the dude, the cyberbullying dude, about it. So when that thing blew up on Island, that was also something that started being used after the fact, after the bullying with him started, here on island. That was never done to me here on this island prior to me telling him about that situation. I just ran my mouth like a faucet to that guy. I told him a lot of stuff, personal info, because I did actually initially trust him as a friend, but then I started to be accusatory towards him, and that created all this horrible stuff for me. Anyway, so nonetheless, I said all of this in my full story, just trying to make comparisons and show why I felt like witchcraft was done. Because weird things were happening to me that had happened to my roommate, except the things weren't true, but it was still happening nonetheless. And so this is why I felt like it was some sort of, that's why I thought so, and that's why I talked about it. They took it as me bullying the roommate and me running my mouth and this and that. And so then they started taking the things I said and using it against me and purposely pinching their nose and making it like I stink and trying to make that my reality. So anyways, y'all listen to Rough Campaign. Anyway, y'all, so the video's getting to be too long. So that's something they've been doing here at the new job. Like, it started with I'm not going to say really who because I don't want any problems, but like my superior. The guy that's really above me that gives me my directives and stuff in there. I can tell the guy don't really care for me, right? Like, he's working with me, which I appreciate. And I can tell he's a good superior. That's why he's in the position that he's in. He takes charge. He has that take charge personality. He reminds me of like some sort of military guy. Like, I feel like he might have been in the military or something. In fact, I think he told me that. I'm not sure. But it's just like you could tell like there's that feeling towards me, that biased feeling that a lot of people have towards me because I've said offensive things in the height of my targeting, reactive abuse. He even kind of slipped and said and called me racist. You know, because remember I shared offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda in my vehicle in Florida when I had tried to relocate before I came back here to Island. So that's largely what made the targeting go viral, part of it. But it had gone viral before that moment, by the way, y'all. But then that was what added to the viralness of my targeting and the perpetuation of this false narrative of me being prejudiced, which I've knocked down in several videos, y'all. But unfortunately, what's happening now is I've been sensitized to that race, to not just even white people, really, to all ethnicities, really. They're just trying to paint it like I'm this freaking closed-minded, prejudiced person, which couldn't be further from the truth. Even if you look at my dating history, you'll see I'm not prejudiced. But anyway, whatever the case is, this is the narrative that's being painted amongst many other false narratives. And so I have been sensitized to that race, been sensitized to females. I told you guys that already because of the false narrative from the text message. Sensitized to children. And we've been sensitized to a lot of things, y'all. And I act awkward for a lot of things. And then I get gaslit about acting awkward about what I've been sensitized to. That race in particular, I can't even watch them on TV anymore comfortably without getting a stupid look on my face because of the noise campaigns and because I know I'm being stared at like a freak show, and they've sensitized me to that race. It's so bad now when I go around that race, sometimes a derogatory term that I shared in my car in Florida. It's not really a derogatory term. It's really just that the narrative attached to it makes it a derogatory term. There's a basically, with the stuff I was sharing in my car in Florida, the Hebrew Israelite propaganda, there is a negative or derogatory belief in that belief system. Not all Hebrews believe it, but some Hebrews believe it about that race, and it's attached to that word that some Hebrews believe that race is. It's basically like this thing from the Bible. I don't even want to bring it up again, y'all. It's so sensitive, but I'm just trying to explain to you what's happening to me because of the sensitization. And so when I see that race, sometimes that word, the lineage that some Hebrews believe that race comes from the Bible, sometimes that word will pop in my head, and I keep trying not to let it happen. I'm not doing it intentionally. I remember my thoughts are being projected. And whenever it happens, it's like it creates more of this horrible thing for me with the gang stalking, and it's like sensitization. I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm literally traumatized and the word just keeps popping in my head. It's just horrible. Just like similar to when I see a little girl, my niece's name popping in my head. It's the same concept. And I keep trying to stop it from happening, and it's really hard. And I keep getting gaslit about it. You know, and the more they sensitize me to the thing, the more it's like it's happening, and the more awkward I act too. Anyway, so... And I knocked this whole thing down in my videos, y'all. I talked about where I learned certain things, why I shared certain things. I've apologized, talked about what I stood by from what I don't stand by. You know, it's just still a thing. It's just like I get lashed still for the thing. Anyway, trying to remember what I was saying, though. I lost my train of thought. So that's basically what it is. With the superior, why I believe he has an issue with me. I think mainly it's the race thing, but then also the cyber stalking, cyberbullying thing. Because I realized the guy that trained him, that works here in this facility, has the same last name as the cyber stalking, cyberbullying dude that I talked about in my story. And I only talked about him again because his family had befriended my family, or my family befriended his family. However the hell the thing happened, and they were a part of the noise campaigns going on in that old neighborhood. That's the only reason I talked about him. And then when I talked about him, I got gaslit about it. So then I started to talk about it more, and I started trying to prove certain things, and I made a receipt video, and I got more backlash, and then it turned into me being a homewrecker, me trying to be a homewrecker. Just a whole heap of nightmare bullshit, y'all. Crazy fanatical stuff that's just not true. Anyway, so I just had to chalk it up as a loss and just take it as, whatever, and stop talking about it. And I did stop talking about it. They still won't let the thing go. Similar to the race thing. They just keep harping on all of those things and just throwing it at me and sensitizing my brain. So now it's so bad too. That's another example of sensitization. Whenever I talk to that guy in here that has the same last name as that dude, his name is popping in my head now. His name never used to pop in my head. His name is popping in my head now. And come to find out, that guy probably isn't even related to him. Or if he is, it might be, but like far distant. Because he's actually not even from the same island as that guy. He's from the island, the neighboring island, next to that island. So I'm sure they are probably like far distant family. But they're not family like I thought. So it's just crazy, y'all. It's just crazy what's happening with the targeting and the psychological element of it. And then how you get gaslit about these reactions to things you've been sensitized to. It's just how the thing works. Anyway, so I believe that created an amp up in that pinching nose thing, though, because that's what they've been doing since I've been working here. That's part of what makes it kind of tedious sitting up under an officer, is because as I'm talking, they keep pinching their nose and acting like I stink. Not all of them do it. This one guy trained with, he wasn't really doing it like that, right? He was really nice. But like a lot of them I train with, they're like holding their head and they're pinching their nose, like it's like my breath smells so bad that it's like lighting up the whole office. Mind you, in the morning you can see first of all, before I started working here, I bought a brand new toothbrush. And I do that every month, by the way, y'all. I bought a brand new toothbrush. I brought the toothpaste I like to use. I don't use toothpaste with fluoride in it. I like to use the toothpaste that doesn't have the fluoride because the fluoride rottens out your teeth. And it also gets in your bloodstream and it calcifies your pineal gland. So I don't use toothpaste with fluoride in it, and I don't use mouthwash with fluoride in it. But I use the mouthwash that has peroxide in it. And oxygen, peroxide's liquid oxygen. Oxygen kills all bacteria. Bacteria cannot survive in oxygen. It's more effective than using alcohol or fluoride to kill the bacteria. Alcohol actually causes dry mouth. So you using Listerine and stuff, it might in the second make your breath smell good. But later on in the day, you might get dry mouth and get bad breath because of the drying effect that alcohol has on the mouth. I use Dr. Bronner's mouthwash, right? And his has peroxide and natural ingredients in it. And that's why it's like one of the best selling mouthwashes out there. And it's super expensive. Anyway, so I'm using that every morning. I'm flossing my teeth. I'm brushing. They see me. They're watching me on camera. I'm brushing every crevice in my mouth. I'm scrubbing my tongue to the point where it's pink. Not one white spot on my tongue. You know how some people have plaque on their tongue? You see their tongue looking kind of white. No disrespect to anybody that has that going on. My tongue looking pink. I'm scrubbing it so well. Sometimes I'm bleeding. I'm scrubbing so well. So if I'm having bad breath, it has to be coming from within. If they're lying, if they're trying to say my breath is stinking, it must be coming from my stomach. Because I'm scrubbing my mouth out so well and using mouthwash. And then on top of that, I'm wearing a thick ass mask that I can barely breathe through. I have to, when I'm walking up the hill, y'all, in this facility, it'd be hot during the daytime. And I wear a waist trainer. Y'all know I like to work out and deal with my body and stuff. I wear a waist trainer during the daytime. When I'm walking up the hill, wearing the waist trainer and the mask that I wear, I have to pull the mask and they hear me wheezing for breath because the mask is so thick you can barely, like I have that kind of mask on my face, right? I have a cloth mask on. It's a custom made mask, but it's kind of thick, the material. My breath is not traveling through that. I'm telling you. There's no way that my breath is kicking that bad with the way I'm scrubbing it, that it's traveling through that thick ass mask and lighting up anybody's office. Even if I did have the stinkest of stink, right? Halitosis mouth. Wearing that mask, unless you were up in my face, like very close to my face, you wouldn't smell my breath. You're not going to be sitting near me and smelling my breath with that mask on, with the way I'm scrubbing my mouth. So it's just a tactic being used, obviously. right? And because I've talked in my videos very candidly about the fact that I had this fear of BO, specifically halitosis. I talked about that experience at the call center. And so now that's what's being done hardcore here at the job. They're pinching their nose and they're acting like it's the stinkiest thing ever. You know, some days it's worse than others, and some days it's not as bad. Like today wasn't too bad. Where they're not doing it too bad, but it's like this joke thing in there. And then they'll do the conversation where they'll say bullshit and sensitization words. Like they might say 6 o'clock, or because remember the stupid symbol thing that happened in last year, if you're familiar with my videos, y'all. I'm not going into the details about that. But, or stealing, and, you know, so I just realized what's being done. They're doing it on purpose, right? Just, again, to make me feel whatever, you know, and it's just like, so that's kind of happening, but I still wanted to knock it down because on Tuesday, what made me start making this video in the first place was it was real bad. When they were doing it initially, I was like, okay, I know it's a tactic. I know, you know, I'm just going to bear it out, whatever, you know, because if I can do the job and, you know, they're just doing simple little things like that, who cares? It's not a big deal. I know why it's being done. I get it. It was Tuesday that was so bad. I was like, nah, man, I got to make a video, right? That was when the bow broke. And I was like, I have to make a video about this because that same superior I was telling you guys about that I think he thinks I'm racist, right? Because he said he slipped up and called me racist, you know, because like him and I were having brief conversation about his nationality, and he was telling me that he speaks 3 different languages. He speaks Spanish, Japanese, and he was saying English. And so I was asking him, oh, okay, are you Dominican? You know, I was trying to ask him what type of Spanish he was. I said, I didn't even say, are you Dominican? I didn't just assume. I said, what type of Spanish are you? This is all I asked him. I said, what's your ethnicity? I said, what kind of Spanish are you? He said, you're racist. I said, racist? I said, how is that a racist question? He said, no, I'm just joking. But I could tell he wasn't really joking. Like, I think he thinks I'm prejudiced. But then he told me his ethnicity, right? But that was just one of the little off-kilter jokes he made that let me know why, you know, low-key probably doesn't like me like that. But still, you know, I got the job, so he's going to work with me because obviously he's a superior and he didn't get there, you know, overnight. You know, obviously he does his job to the best of his ability, and so he's going to be a leader and teach me regardless. But you can work with somebody and not like them, right? So that's just how it is. And so it's just one of those things I could tell he doesn't necessarily care for me as a person because of some of these reactions I've had. So he hardcore, he's the one who started the thing in the facility, really, the pinching, nose and acting, and they all followed his lead. But he's not the one who started it in general. Before I even got to work, when I was in the car with my father, he know I'm going into work for the first day. You know, they all know this is a full BMI Debret thing. I've been rode in the car with my dad before, and he'll do the pinch nose thing sometimes, you know, just to be spiteful. But not the way he was doing it before I went in that day, for the first day. He was purposely pinching and kept talking to me on purpose and then pinching his nose on purpose. And I remember thinking in my head, and I know my thoughts are being projected, why would he do this? And he knows I'm going in there. You know, this is what I thought in my head, it's for them to start doing this. And then I get in there and it really started happening. Hardcore. You know, and so it started with that superior that I, you know, like I said, asked me if I was racist. And then he was like purposely doing it to the others. I saw him kind of like eyeing them and doing it. And so then they all started doing it. Anyway, so it's just this thing in there now. And it's like, I feel like they're telling the inmates I stink too. Because the first day I went, when the inmates didn't really know who I was, you know, it was a very receptive type of reaction when I got in there, and they were cool and everything. And even now they're still cool. They're still nice, right? It's nothing like what I heard Jill would be like. Like, they're so cool, man. But now I could tell that they've been alerted to the situation. I can tell they're privy to the situation now. But some of the things I hear some of them saying, like sensitization, some of them I've heard saying things, right? And then one morning too, it wasn't yesterday, it was morning before yesterday, Thursday morning. I remember going in and I was, you know, shadowing, like I said, the guy that was nice. And I remember he was doing head count and I was walking around with him. And so we were walking by the inmates, and I walked by this inmate, and of course I'm wearing perfume and I'm wearing my lotion and stuff. I walked by the inmate, and when I walked by him, I heard him tell the other guy, she smells good. You know, when he said that, I'm like, oh my God. I think they're telling the inmates I stink. I think they're actually going around and telling the inmates I stink. I think that's what they're doing. Some of them. I don't want to bear false witness. I think that might be what's happening. Anyway, and you know, the inmates have no way of really knowing outside of what they're being told what's going on, because it's not like the people out here who can see on camera what's going on and hear what's going on. So they just know what they're being told, right? So it's hard, guys. You know, it's already hard when you're starting out as somebody new in a level where you have to take authority. And then you're starting out in that position as a target. and not knowing anyone and certain things being said about you to the inmates and stuff, that's rough. That's rough. So anyways, it is what it is, y'all. So that was why I wanted to make the video though, because on Tuesday it was just so bad. Like Tuesday it was real like ham.com, because I had went towards the end of the day to take my lunch. I took my lunch at the end of the day. And something told me my stupid ass to turn the TV on in the break room. I don't know why I did it. They were hooked up to the internet system in the break room. Of course they are. I don't know why I would think different. And so they were using the shadow networking AI software. I even saw the plaid shirt in the court case that I was watching on the TV. And it was, the race that I've been sensitized to. So I was acting awkward. I knew the superior that had called me racist was sitting right outside the office. I know he's likely watching me. So I was sitting there acting awkward and stuff. And when I left after, before I could even leave, they were doing the sensitization in that court episode, talking about falsely accusing. The guy had falsely accused and something else happened. And so when I left the office, the superior was walking in right as I was leaving the office. And he said, come meet the warden. Right. So I went and I met the warden and he walked off and left. After I met her, I went to the front office. He was in the front office, and the front office is very small. And he was in there with the guy that has the same last name as the cyberstalking, cyberbullying guy. And apparently that guy trained him. So he's like, oh, I want you to meet so-and-so. I said, oh, I know who that is, because I had already met him before when I was doing security at the gate for the jail. Remember, I told you guys that the security job I work, I do security at the gate for the same prison that I'm a correction officer or training to become a corrections officer in. So I had met that guy before, and he even had this kind of outrageous reaction to me because of the last name, initially, and then it just turned into this joke thing. He's just a funny guy. He's just a clown. He's funny. He really is a funny guy. It's just his personality. So it made it a little bit more light, the awkwardness of him having that last name and the fear I had about it. And again, I reiterate, I don't even think that he's that guy's family, now that I hear where he's from. So anyways, when I was talking to him, the guy, the guy, my superior that called me racist, he was standing right next to me. If you think my breath stinks, wouldn't you back up before I could speak? He stood there and let me start speaking to the guy, and then he started pinching his nose and just acting like it was so terrible. And the guy said, the guy I was talking to that has the same last name as the cyberstalking guy, he said, look, I don't have time for this crap. Remember the joke is, or the false narrative is that my breath smells like shit, right? So when he said this crap, then the dude ducks off. Not the dude, I don't want to be disrespectful, but my superior. He ducked off and he's like, look, I can't stay in here with this. And he started cracking up and he left the office. So, this is humiliating because everybody on the island is watching the whole interaction. So even if it's fanfare and it's nonsense, right? It's still humiliating. So I had a brief conversation with the guy and, left the office, and that was that. It was okay after that. Off and on, they do what they do still since that day, but it hasn't been as bad. But I remember when I left work, the reception from the gang stalkers, they were enjoying that. They were enjoying that interaction. They were going ham in the roads with the ref campaign, and, you see people laughing, and it was just a bunch of shit when I left work that day, and that's what made me make this video. Really, it's always the reception from the gang stalkers who are watching like I'm a freak show. Like it's like entertainment for them, like a telenovela. Like the live entertainment for the island. Like Love and Hip Hop? Like this is the island edition. And everybody's watching and I'm not getting paid for it either. So anyways, it was just so humiliating. And so that's what it was, man. It was basically just, everybody's just going along with the go along and pretending like my breath stinks. It's just it's crazy. It's ludicrous, man. I just be acting normal like I don't see what's happening. Because I'm just here to work. And I want this job, So, and I know what it's about. I know they're pushing the thing. It's just like this, again, pushing the false narrative because they're saying I bear false witness or whatever. So I'm just going along with it. But it's just like, it's draining sometimes. It's just like, oh my God. Can we just go back to normal? I learned my lesson. Can we all act normal now? That's what I be feeling. Anyway, so today wasn't too bad though. The lady I was under, she was acting normal today, and things weren't too bad. I was in the kitchen, so I had things to do, and it wasn't too bad today. I forgot what else. So off of that now. I'm done talking about that. That's all I want to talk about. I want to talk about what happened with my second job, y'all. That's really what I want to talk about. Let me see how long this video is, because I might make a part 2 to this just so I can dedicate its own video to talking about what happened with my second job, because to me this feels more serious than what's happening with the day job. The day job, that's just kind of jokey stuff, that has to do with the targeting and me bearing false witness. The second job, the stuff that be happening with the second job, it's like literally messing with my paycheck. Like the type of stuff that be happening with the second job, it's like literally messing with my paycheck. Anyway, let me stop the video here, y'all, and just see what's going on as far as the time goes, so I can decide whether or not I'm going to continue with this video or make a part 2. Alright, y'all, so I just looked at how long all of the clips are and what it's going to look like if I put it together. And it's way too long, y'all, so I'm going to just talk about what's going on with the second job in a whole different video. I don't know if it's going to be a part 2 to this video, or if I'm going to just make it its own separate video altogether. But check out the next video. Tune in if you want to hear about what took place with my night shift job, because something big popped off earlier. And it just kind of reminded me of what happened a few months ago, where they almost fired me for something my coworker did. It's like I keep having these type of incidents with this job, and I'm trying to be careful with the documentation about it because I don't want to lose it, right? It's been my bread and butter since last year. So I don't want to act stush and brand new now just because I have a second job and act like I'm shitting on this job. I'm not. I still need them, first of all. But second of all, you never burn a bridge. You know, like this job has been, like I said, some sort of supplemental income for me since 2022. Since 2021. So before I even tried to relocate off island. But it's just like, since the targeting, there have been off and on moments where some stuff that's unfair has taken place. And I do have to document and talk about what's going on. It's just completely unfair. So I do have to talk about it. Anyway, so I'll talk about it in the next clip, y'all. Check it out if you're interested.